I'm Chris Story, and this is Alaska Real Estate Podcast. Today, you'll meet David Ogilvy, owner and broker of Ogilvy and Associates, a little real estate firm back in Greenwich, Connecticut. David's a realtor that sold the $120 million estate, the most expensive home ever purchased or sold in America. It was a blast talking to this guy. You're going to love him. He's so humble and really just a great guy. You'll love hearing from David Ogilvy. Alaska Real Estate is brought to you by Alaska Housing Finance Corporation. All over Alaska, AHFC is making a difference. AHFC has a mission: provide safe, affordable, and efficient housing for every Alaskan. With low-interest mortgages, rural programs, and the first-time home buyer program, come on, AHFC is your partner in Alaska real estate. They're online, ahfc.us, or for more information about the Energy Rebate Program, go to akrebate.com. Now, may I introduce you to David Ogilvy. Have you done a tremendous amount of press on this already?
Well, we've done a bit, mildly. It's and it's. I mean, it is really. It's been fun and also interesting to see how many people from how many different places are interested.
Absolutely. Well, I noticed on UK Daily Mail, their headline was, "What does $120 million buy you in America?" And so there's so many different perspectives too. And then they broke it down to that's $10 million a bedroom, etc.
I love it. Well, it really is a remarkable place, and it's so much fun to have something like that. Still left. I mean, I don't want to say the shore of Connecticut was dotted with major estates like that, around 1900, because it was big then too. But the other big ones are all gone except this one. There was one that was 54 acres. There was another one that was 45 acres. They're all long gone, and one that's 168 acres that the town of Greenwich owns and is our beach and wonderful facility. It's gorgeous. But that was, an estate for a couple without children, 168 acres in the water.
Wow.
That would be like.
That's incredible. That's like owning your own small town. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit because you've been getting a lot of press on this particular sale for $120 million, but weren't you also the record holder of having been the most recent realtor to sell a property at the next highest, which was like $84 million or $85 million?
It was $45 million. So
45.
And that was done in 2004, 2005, and that was fun. And I thought at the time I was never going to eclipse that one. Little did I know,
And here you are. And if you go to your website, which is David Ogilvy and Associates, if you go to your website, you'll see that there's a property listed for $130.
Yeah.
So you may sell that one too. You hope.
Yeah, well, here we go. So what the heck,
Yeah.
But what's fun is to sell people their dreams, and it doesn't matter whether it's a $120,000 house or a $500,000 house or a $5 million house or whatever. But if you have the pleasure, as you and I do, of selling people their dreams sometimes, it is really exciting.
Yeah, that is. How long have you been in real estate, David?
Oh, my whole career, so since I was 24.
Oh, no kidding. Now, did you start in luxury? Because you specialize now in luxury market, I take it.
We're really across the market, but I'm really the high-end broker here. I mean, but I also, my office kids me because although I own this firm, I really do enjoy selling. I'm not very good in an office all day long. I need to be outside. I don't know whether that happens to you, but I really need to be outside and, breathing fresh air and walking and doing all that stuff. I'm just an energetic person. And so, they kid me that, how did you find this very inexpensive house and sell it? And I say, well, I think you've got to give the same service to everybody. But, of course, what happens in the great pyramid of prices in this part of the world, there are very few at the absolute top. Mm-hmm. It's a very small pyramid. And then you get other ones which you sell for, $1 million or $800,000. And I work just as hard on those because some of those are very nice people. And it's just as meaningful to them as it is to the person who has $50 million to spend.
Why did you get into real estate when you were 24? What prompted you?
I went to the University of Virginia, and I had wanted to become an architect. And in my opinion, I wasn't good enough at either art, architecture, or physics. And if you can't build a darn thing to stand up, you better give up. So I realized that what I really wanted to do was buy houses and rehab them. It's sort of like the Property Brothers show on on television. Do you get that up there?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's the sort of thing that I think is very interesting, to rehab and make things wonderful that are kind of, what sounds ears. And so for me, that was the really fun thing. But I didn't have any money, and so I needed to get some money so I could start buying these things. And I realized, a couple of years into it, that I really preferred the people to living in plaster dust.
Uh-huh.
I've done a couple of houses for myself. That's fun, but I never went on with that. But it's that's a very enjoyable show, and I think it's a very enjoyable thing to take these houses that are such terrible houses and make them work.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, and give new life to it. It's exciting. It is.
Do you do any of that yourself?
I do. It's interesting you should say that, because you said you'd rather be with the people than surrounded by plaster dust. This weekend, 2 days ago, I found myself in a duplex that I recently purchased and been remodeling under a sink with a horrible situation, trying to install these clamps to fasten a sink. And I said, you know what? There are people that, A, know how to do this right, and B, enjoy it. What am I doing?
Exactly. Well, there is a show on with some young couple. I don't think it's not Property Brothers, but they're doing rehabs in California, which I just happened to get the same channel. I don't know what it is, but they did very little, and they seem to be making a lot of money on it.
Right.
It's a very hot market, but I would want to do real quality.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some people around here who do wonderful things like that, and they're a pleasure to work for too. I love architecture. I love the style. I love houses that are magnificent, and you look at some of these amazing Virginia old plantations that have been around for 200 or 300 years or more, and those are magnificent, and they're being saved, and it's just a wonderful thing. I don't know how old your oldest houses are up in Homer, but around here there's some pretty old ones.
In Alaska, if you get something that's in the 40s, down in some of the more Russian-established areas where the Russians had control, you'll get some things that are in the 1800s, but it's not a big part of our marketplace. It's more of a modern construction market. By modern, I mean 40s and forward. But David, let me ask you something though because I don't want to get into the specifics, obviously the transaction, but I'm curious, and I'm sure others are as well. When you go through a larger $100 million, $45 million transaction, are the due diligence periods is similar? I mean, is it similar at all in writing a contract to, in other words, your day-to-day life as a realtor when you're going through that big of a transaction? Is it the same as what you would do, as you mentioned, on a $100,000 or $500,000 home?
It's similar. It just takes longer because the physical space is usually larger,
mm-hmm.
and sometimes we're a little unusual here in that we do not write the contract. And most people around the United States, the broker writes the contract, and the buyer signs it as an offer, and then when the seller signs it, they have a deal,
mm-hmm.
and with contingencies in it. But we just do a memorandum of sale, and all that is, it's a completely non-binding thing, and then we put it in a lawyer's hands, and work hard to keep the lawyers under control, so don't make any mistakes. And there's a lot of that. They tend to try to reinterpret things, particularly when the market was turbulent, in 2008-9.
Mm-hmm.
They kept trying to talk buyers out of buying, and so we had to spend an awful lot of time saying to people, you really do need to listen to realtors. This is the facts from what is selling.
Right.
We were actually doing quite well with that. Now they were selling, but at lower prices, and of course all those people who bought then are looking back and thinking, man, I was lucky I listened to the realtor and not somebody who really didn't know what was going on in the actual marketplace.
Fascinating. So the lawyer is injecting not a legal opinion necessarily. In addition to a legal opinion, they're also injecting their own bias on whether this is a judgment call.
Exactly.
Interesting. No, we do not deal with that very often, luckily.
You wouldn't find that, but it's and lawyers you need around here. It's a good idea to have lawyers because we don't have the same level. I mean, a lot of our deeds are very old. And, 1800s and 1900s, and you really got to have somebody who's very careful, and the title insurance companies are, I suppose reasonably knowledgeable, but you as a buyer want to make very sure you're getting the right kind of information, and I'd rather have the lawyer do that because then I can sleep at night. If there's a mistake made, it's the lawyer who made it, it's not me.
Right.
I don't make many mistakes, but, who knows when these things do happen. And so you want to make sure that the people are buying what it is that they think they're buying.
Well, you touched on that you experienced, like the rest of the country, perhaps a little bit of a downturn in the market. Did the luxury market, in your opinion, did it get affected as much, or is luxury, the folks that are buying luxury homes have money and continue to just purchase regardless of what the overall economy is doing?
We did the classic story of our town here for the last 100 years is that we are the last to feel the effects of turbulence and the first to pull out. That's because it's a pretty conservative area.
Uh-huh.
They don't have high percentages of mortgage or loan to value. A number of people own their houses outright. That's just because that's a philosophy, because a lot of it was oriented to the stock market. And so you want to make sure that no matter what happens, you still have your house. So that's been a kind of old tradition. However, in this last downturn, it hit the hedge funds very hard. And we have a lot of hedge funds around here. So, it's called, Hedge Row is the name of one of our roads. That's not the real name, but
right.
Call it that. And you look around the world and you see the hedge funds are headquartered New York, Greenwich, London, and where is it? Is it Sydney? I can't remember. But in any case, you see these, but we had a lot of them. So it did fall back at that time in a way we were not used to. And then what happened was a very interesting sort of sympathetic reaction. There are a lot of people here who've done extremely well. They ride the market up and they ride the market down, and they know how to sell short. They know how to do all sorts of interesting things. But maybe their buddies, have been having a rough time, and there's some downsizing at some huge bank or something like that. And so, although they were perfectly fine and did very well, they would say, "Well, I'm not in the market now because I don't want to sort of embarrass my friends because they're having a rough time." That we did not expect.
Interesting.
That was something new.
Yeah.
But now the first thing you were aware of when you're pulling out, people around here are kind of, particularly young, successful people are into kind of supercars and things like that. And so you'd say, "Oh, that's a beautiful new car." Well, my lease ran out. I had to get it. They might have a new car every 6 months.
Right.
And it doesn't have anything to do with the lease. It was just a way of being, kind of polite to their friends. So
interesting.
I think that was fine. I had no problem with it. It made our life a little difficult. But when you really sat back and looked at it, people, as the market rode down, the average price rode down, you had to be pretty capable to make people go ahead with transactions. Now, people who were being transferred here, say Americans coming back from England or Australia or anywhere, and had to buy, were wonderful people to have. But some of them rented with the idea of figuring out what they wanted for a couple of years. And that was something that we were not used to doing. I mean, we rent, but it's not for that reason. So now a lot of those people have gone ahead and started to buy again, and some of them are buying some very healthy prices for their houses.
I noticed on your website, David, also that there was rentals on your website. What would a home rent for? Just an average home for a family. What would a rental be approximately?
They go from, well, at the very low end, it's about $2,500 to $3,000 a month. And then there are a good number of rentals that go up to, $8,000 a month, $9,000 a month, which is a lot of money. And then there are a few super high-end ones that are, go up to $20,000 a month, which strikes me as an enormous amount of money, but there it is. And then there are a couple of ones that, well, if you figure that if you buy a house that is worth $10 million, and, the old hope was to get your, return on investment of 10%, well, that's a lot of money, and on a monthly basis. So you don't really get if you're a seller or an owner, you don't really get your money out of it. But you do get to keep your property. And I, for many years, and still continue to do this, when friends or people who call me up as a client say to me, we're moving to Denver for a few years, or Alaska, or some wonderful place, that they want to sell it and they want to buy in when they come back, and I beg them, absolutely universally beg them, hang on to your property here. Even if when you come back you're going to move to a different house, you want to own a piece of this place, because overall, over the long period of long time, it is definitely going to appreciate. I didn't know how much it was going to appreciate, but it definitely has appreciated over the years. Even, in the bad times, if you bought in 2006 at the height of the market and tried to sell in 2008, you weren't doing very well. You lost money. Right. But if you bought in 2006 and you're selling today, you're fine.
Isn't that interesting how things even out? It's kind of funny, David, because I started my brokerage in 2007. Of all times.
There you go. You were very brave. But the market may have been different from ours.
It took us a little longer to feel the tail, but it did eventually reach us.
I mean, you weren't just completely Wall Street oriented, and have the Dow Jones go down and have a tremendous contraction in the number of people who were hired by these big banks.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
I hope that you did not have this craziness of these non-income verification loans.
Some. You mean the no doc, no loan, or no problem? Yeah, no income, no problem loans. Yeah, I gotta love those. A little bit, but no. Alaska really avoided a lot of the big downfalls and so forth, and a lot of responsible lending. And we've got some great lenders up here. David, may I ask you in closing if you would retell us, perhaps, do you remember the first sale that you ever made?
I remember it very clearly, and I was a very nervous young man, but I did the thing that I advise everybody starting out in years in my business, and that is to become as knowledgeable about every single thing as you had in your market. You had to see every house, know it cold, the whole 9 yards, and this particular house I was feeling rather desperate. I think I was 9 months into my job, and I had never made a sale, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and it was snowing hard in the middle of winter, and this couple wanted to come out at 2:30 and look at several houses. And there was only one house that filled the bill for them. It was very inexpensive and a very nice country piece of property. And they showed up at 4, and they'd obviously had a great deal of wine, and so they still wanted to go. We went and looked at this house. They looked out the window. They said, "This is a dream," and they bought it on the spot. Well, I, being a very honorable person, made very sure the next day they still want to go ahead. Now, remember, we have a lot of checks and balances. Nobody signed anything that moment.
Mm-hmm.
They could wake up the next morning and say, "I don't think we even went there," that kind of thing.
Right.
But in any case, they were thrilled. They stayed there for years. They don't even live here anymore, and they still think it was the best thing they ever did. And so I fell in love with the romance of that, and I realized that you really have to appeal to people's romantic instincts if you want to buy the unusual. Now, that was a very inexpensive house, and it's the same buyer in the very expensive house. The one thing we do find is that on these super high-end houses, which go from $10 million up, I would say, or $8 million up, very typically the buyer will know exactly what they want when they see it, and they will not spend a lot of time agonizing over it. They're used to making decisions in their business life, and they don't have to wait around.
Interesting. Boy, that's fascinating. Good story. And what a great, almost iconic first sale story. That's fantastic.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And you make people happy. That's why you and I do what we do.
Yeah.
That's
so
love
true.
doing that stuff. And certainly for this particular place, Copper Beach Farm, it is such an incredible space that maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it or whatever, but it is unique. And I have a couple of young friends who I say young, they're 35, and they're Wunderkind in Wall Street. And they have each one said to me, before this house even sold, they said, whoever is lucky enough to have the cash to buy that place is going to look back in 10 or 20 years and say, best deal I ever made in my entire life. I agree with that.
Nice. I like that. David Ogilvy, I appreciate your time today. Oh, one last question. I promise this will be the last. If you could recommend a book that you think any salesperson or any realtor, anybody affiliated with our business and industry should read, what would it be?
Wow. Well, isn't it funny? This is going to sound very odd to you, and that is that my father was in the advertising business, and he wrote a couple of bestseller books. And I have a number of people who he's no longer alive, but I have a number of people who tell me that they have 10 books above their desk, and this is the best of them, and it's called Ogilvy on Advertising. I had nothing to do with writing it, but my father wrote it, and there's so many interesting things about business and about marketing and all that darn thing in it. And I happen to have it out here because I was checking something for some advertising where I have a disagreement with somebody who doesn't want to run a certain size of whatever. So, in any case, Ogilvy on Advertising, great book. Read it and enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David.
Take care.
Alaska USA Title Agency is a proud sponsor of Alaska Real Estate, serving your title and escrow needs in every corner of Alaska with 8 offices. The Alaska USA Title team is ready to go way over the top to serve you and your clients. Find out for yourself why so many people are saying, close me at Alaska USA Title Agency. Online, akusatitle.com. So I called Tidal Wave Books the other day to see, all right, do you have a copy of Ogilvy on Advertising? Well, not currently, but guess what? They had just recently sold a copy, so this is just so cool. You can go to Tidal Wave Books and see what they've got and spend some time browsing around. You literally never know what you're going to find. Stop in today and just go through every category. My favorite is to spend a lot of time in their business section. Super eclectic, a lot of great things. I've discovered books and authors in Tidal Wave Books. Like the gal told me on the phone, keep checking back, Chris. We'll get another copy soon. We're sure of it. Ogilvy on advertising. I cannot wait to pick my copy up at Tidal Wave Books, your one-stop shop for all things used book and more. Northern Lights next to REI, and they're online at wavebooks.com. Well, that's it for this edition of Alaska Real Estate. Chelsea Westerberg and Sandy Ehrenman are your executive producers. Me, little old me, I'm Chris Story, and for all of us at Alaska Real Estate, I'm wishing you health, wealth, and prosperity. See you next time for great adventures in real estate. God, that's cheesy.